So, if you've been keeping an eye on the news, you probably thought the whole US-China trade war was finally starting to cool down. Well, in just the last few days, it's just exploded, suddenly, violently. We're going to break down exactly how we got here, what just happened, and what this all means for, well, pretty much the entire global economy.
To really get how big of a shock this is, you have to rewind just 1 week. The mood was optimistic. Sources were saying both sides were making happy noises. A deal felt like it was right there. A presidential meeting was on the schedule. Things were actually looking up.
And then, just like that, the whole thing blew up. In a flash, that fragile calm was absolutely shattered. The negotiation didn't just hit a snag, it completely imploded, sending shockwaves all around the world.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at that fragile truce that was barely holding on. Then, we'll get into China's bombshell move, the fierce retaliation from the US, the market freefall that followed, and finally, the really dangerous endgame we're all facing now.
All right, first up, that fragile truce. See, to get why it all went sideways, you have to look at where things were right before the collapse. Tariffs were holding steady, the two sides were actually talking, and there was this feeling that, maybe a real resolution was within reach.
And this is some really important context here. That 30% tariff on China, it was a big deal, for sure, but it wasn't some crazy outlier. Canada was actually facing a higher rate. Other key partners had pretty big tariffs too. This was the status quo. It was tense, but it was manageable.
Okay, so that brings us to the moment everything changed. China decided to pull out its biggest economic weapon, a move the Wall Street Journal rightly called a bombshell.
So what exactly are these things? Rare earths are a group of 17 elements, and they are absolutely essential for pretty much all modern technology. And here's the thing, despite the name, they're not actually rare in the ground. The problem is, refining them is incredibly difficult and messy, environmentally speaking, so very few countries actually do it.
And you really can't overstate how important these things are. We're talking about everything from the smartphone in your hand to electric vehicles, and even the most advanced military gear like the F-35 fighter jet. They're pretty much the secret sauce for our entire 21st century world and defense.
I heard a great analogy from an industry insider that really nails it. Think of rare earths not like sugar in a recipe, but like salt. They're a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost, maybe less than 1%, but if you don't have that tiny pinch of salt, the entire dish, whether it's a computer chip or a missile system, completely fails. It just can't be made.
And this is the whole ballgame right here. China has a near monopoly, controlling something like 90% of the world's refining capacity. That basically gives it a chokehold on the entire global supply of these critical materials. They are the ultimate gatekeeper. And if you want to put that dependency into perspective, get this. To build just one F-35 fighter jet, you need 400 kilograms. That's nearly half a ton of rare earth materials. So when China hinted it might cut off exports, this wasn't just about iPhones anymore. It was a direct shot at national security. So how did the US respond to this? Well, Washington's reaction was fast, it was furious, and it took this fight way beyond a simple trade spat into something much, much bigger.
The answer came straight from the president on social media. He called China's move extremely hostile and left zero room for doubt. A new 100% tariff slapped right on top of everything they were already paying.
And the math here is, well, it's just staggering. You take the 30% tariff that was already in place, then you add this new 100% tariff on top of it. The result? A 130% effective tariff. That means the cost of almost any product coming from China would more than double, practically overnight.
So as you can probably guess, this massive, sudden escalation sent violent shockwaves through the global financial markets. One analyst put it pretty bluntly. He said the markets got clubbed like a baby seal.
Yeah, the impact was immediate and brutal. You can see it right here. The S&P 500, the tech-heavy NASDAQ, they both got hammered, posting their worst single-day drops in months. Investors just panicked.
I mean, the scale of this financial damage was just breathtaking. And that first sell-off, an estimated $2 trillion in value, was just gone, wiped off of global markets, a direct result of this escalating war of words and tariffs. But look, this isn't just about big numbers on a screen. This quote from a toy maker in China really brings it back down to a human level. For people running businesses on the ground, this isn't some strategic chess game. It's an existential threat to their companies, to their livelihoods, and to their employees' jobs. So, where does all this leave us?
Right now, the world's two biggest economies are locked in a super high-stakes standoff. And honestly, there's no clear way out.
And the thing is, both sides have some major vulnerabilities here. The US is deeply dependent on China for those rare earths, and these huge tariffs could easily spark inflation. But at the same time, China's dealing with its own slowing economy, a property crisis, and it really can't afford to lose its biggest customers.
And unfortunately, folks who know this stuff, like former trade negotiator Wendy Cutler, they're not very optimistic. The problem is, it seems like both sides think they have the upper hand. And when both sides think they have leverage, it makes it politically almost impossible to back down.
And that's really the big question we're all left with, isn't it? This whole crisis has gone way beyond just dollars and cents or tariffs on stuff. It has weaponized the tiny, essential building blocks of our modern world. The trust that holds global trade together has been fractured, and it leaves all of us wondering, what happens next in a world where you can't even count on getting the salt for your recipe?